तत्प्रसादात् परां शान्तिम् स्थानं प्राप्स्यसि शाश्वतम्. So tam eva sharanam gaccha, surrender to that Lord. How? Sarva bhavena bharata, wholeheartedly. Tat prasadat, by the mercy of that Lord, what will happen? Param shanti, you will attain the supreme happiness. Along with that, you will also attain sthanam prapsisi shashvatam. So basically, here Krishna is telling that the previous verse was that the Lord is in control. He is in our hearts. Ishvara sarva bhutanam. So transcendence, that's the element which we are going to discuss today. What it means essentially is, we'll talk about this in 3 broad steps, that when we talk about Krishna's plan, do Krishna's plan. It is Krishna's plan. When we say, how do I know what is Krishna's plan? Isn't it? And we should always do Krishna's plan. If we don't do Krishna's plan, we'll be doomed. We'll be confused, we'll be lost. And when you ask Krishna, what is Krishna's plan? Oh, Krishna's plan is very difficult to know. So it seems very perverse at one level. If we don't do Krishna's plan, we'll be lost. But knowing Krishna's plan is very difficult. So Krishna's plan is more like a direction rather than a path. What I mean by this is that Krishna's plan, it is more like a general way Krishna wants us to function. Why do we say it's a direction rather than a path? We'll talk about multiple aspects over here. Say, consider a parent. I travel across the world many times, especially outside India, when we have people who have become devotees or want to become devotees, or even other Hindus, when I meet them, they are very concerned about their children. And the children may go off in the wrong direction because in general there are temptations everywhere, but in the Western world the temptations are much more. And the temptations are much more severe also. In India the temptation might be, my daughter may get involved with some boy, or my son may get involved with some girl. Next is my daughter may become a boy. Or my son may become a girl. So actually in North America, it is that transgender surgery is like you can change your bodily gender by doing operations and taking medicines and everything. Not only can people do that, but they consider it that the child has a right to do that and the parents have no right to stop the child from doing that. Because if the parents stop, that means the parents are biased. The parents are narrow-minded and bigoted. And there are cases where the child wants to do it, the parent opposes it, then the child is taken away from the parents. You are unfit parents. And at least I know 2-3 devotees who just left America and came to India because the child got affected by this. Now, because in India, that kind of laws are not there. But the thing is that there are dangers everywhere. So now when they ask, so then sometimes they have a lot of concerns about their children. Now if I talk with the children are quite often quite intelligent. But they may definitely know they are quite thoughtful, intelligent, but they are also into a particular way of living. They don't want to necessarily practice Bhakti. So then I ask the parents that, now if you could replace your child with a perfectly obedient robot which looks just like your child, would you want that? What do you think? Many parents say, if I can have an additional robot, that's nice, but I don't want to replace my child. Because there is no love and reciprocation between the robot and the person, isn't it? So, while parents want their children to obey them, the parents also want the children to grow up to be good human beings. They don't want to take away the free will of the child. They want the child to use the free will well. So now what applies to human parents also applies to our divine parent. Now when we surrender to Krishna, it is not that Krishna wants to take our free will away. Krishna wants that we use our free will properly. So if Krishna had wanted just somebody who would obey him, Krishna could have made a robot. Krishna could have made millions of robots who would always obey him. Krishna wants the reciprocation of love. So that means Krishna's plan is more of, say, if this is the material world and we are here. So Krishna's plan, you could say, is more like a direction. He wants us to come to him. And he wants us to function in this world so that we can come closer to him. So it's more like a direction which he wants us to go. It's not necessarily a specific narrow path. If you don't do this, you're lost. When people ask this, that especially among young people who are of a marriageable age, does everybody have their life partner arranged by God? Now, if you think about it, you have a logical perspective. So, if God has arranged, okay, this person meant to be married to this person, this person meant to be married to this person, this person meant to be married to this person, then what happens? If one person makes a different choice, then it's a domino effect, all of the choices go wrong. Isn't it? So, the idea, many people ask, do we have a soul mate? Have you heard the word soul mate? Somebody is a mate not just for my body, but my soul, the idea is. So do we have a soul mate, people ask. So I tell them, you can worry about the mate first understand the soul. First try to understand who you really are, and then you can find out proper relationship, what that will work for you. So the idea that God wants to micro-control us, or rather surrender or doing God's will is like one narrow direction. Only if you go in this direction, then you're doing God's will. If not, you're lost. It's not like that. Krishna has given each one of us individuality, and he wants us to use our individuality. So the Lord's plan is more of a direction rather than a specific narrow path. In the spiritual world, when the gopis cook for Krishna, it is not that every single day Krishna sends the menu every day. Make this sabji and make this sweet and make this and make this and make this. The gopis know what Krishna likes, and the gopis know what they can do, and then they feel inspired and they cook certain things for Krishna. And they make garlands. The gopis have their individuality and they use their individuality. The Pandavas are all pure devotees, but each of the Pandavas is a complete individual in their own right. It's not that because they have to be devotees, they have to be Xerox copies of each other. Or they don't have to be clones of each other. So this is a build up on the previous point only. But broadly speaking, Krishna's plan is more like a direction rather than a specific choice. So right now I'm speaking. If I speak one sentence or I speak another sentence, I want to convey the same point. Now, is it that if I want to be serving Krishna, every single word that I speak, it has to be dictated by Krishna? Well, I have heard from my spiritual masters. I have read my Shastra. I use my intelligence and I'm speaking. Prabhupada said that his books are written by Krishna. Krishna dictated to him. That's true. At the same time, Krishna is present in Prabhupada's books. Does that mean Prabhupada is not present in Prabhupada's books? What do you think? Is it only Krishna present and Prabhupada is not present? If that were the case, then why did Prabhupada not write the book's author as Krishna, or why did he write himself as the author? Isn't it? It's a human-divine partnership. It's a human-divine cooperation. It is the thoughts, the words, the ideas, they come from Krishna. And the specific word, the specific examples, there is always the individuality is there. So, there is a direction that we get from Krishna. And what is the direction? Broadly speaking, like I mentioned in today's situation, today morning class. Then Krishna told Arjuna, The wise people act in ways that make things better. The unwise people act in ways that make things worse. So when we want to do Krishna's plan is more like a direction. Now we may say, okay, in the direction, so direction of raising the consciousness, direction of bringing about our our specific gifts that Krishna has given us. Now, when this is there, broadly speaking, so Krishna would want us to become more selfless, not more selfish. Krishna will want us to become having more service attitude and less of a possessive attitude. That way, broadly we can say that Krishna's plan is more like a direction. Now, having said that, so that direction will get some understanding from our seniors, from our guides, from our teachers, and we move forward in that direction. At the same time, it is our life, it's our decisions we have to make. But we take the guidance and we make decisions. So after that, the next thing is that when we are trying to act according to Krishna's plans, it is not that Krishna's plan is not just about what happens to us. That is definitely there. But Krishna's plan is about what we do. If you consider surrender. There are two distinct examples of surrender. One is Draupadi. So, when did Draupadi surrender especially? Yes, during the Asat Sabhaya, in the gambling match. So at that time, she raises her arms in helplessness. Krishna, I depend on you. That is surrender. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, in 1866, Krishna tells Arjuna, surrender. Mamekam Sharanam Raja. And Arjuna says, yes, I will surrender to you. Karishye Vachinam Tava. What is Arjuna surrender? Does Arjuna raise his hands? Does he raise his arms? Yes, he does. But he raises his arms. He's Dhanusha. That is also arms. Isn't it? That is weapons. So, Draupadi and Arjuna, both of them surrender, but their surrender is very different. This is accept Krishna's will. Okay, Krishna, this is what you want to happen, then I'll accept it. But Arjuna is more of accept the responsibility to do Krishna's will. Krishna, you want this fight to happen? You want me to play a part in it? I will play my part. So Krishna's will, like earlier in the morning I mentioned, that things happen to us and things happen through us. So Krishna's will can be both. Sometimes something happened to us and we accept those things. Sometimes we need to act to change things. And that happens through us. So sometimes people think, oh, Bhakti will make you, if you become surrendered, you just become very passive and you will not do anything. That is not the idea of surrender. Yes, sometimes we have to gracefully accept what has happened. So this is where the idea of destiny and other things come in. So this is basically what we are talking about is that dual forms of surrender. Dual means two forms of surrender are there. So I'll talk about 3 Ds over here. First D was Krishna's will is more like a direction, not a specific path. And on that path, sometimes we have to make choices. So many times people, like the previous point also I made that, okay, sometimes something is happening to us. Like in the morning class, I was telling that sometimes we tolerate, sometimes we. Then remember 3 options? Tolerate, mitigate, immigrate. So I talk about 3 things. Now the question, now in one sense, tolerate is more like, okay, this is happening, just live with it. And mitigate or immigrate is where God's will not is happening to me, it is through me. So what God wants me to walk away from here. Or God wants me to stand and fight over here. So which is the right thing to do? One of my godbrothers was in Mumbai about 25 years ago. I think in 2007, or something, maybe a little earlier than that actually. There was this big riots that happened in Mumbai. On one day, 24 bombs or something had exploded. So there were many riots going on. So he was here in Saffron, he had gone for a program, and he was just coming from the program, and he was carrying Bhagavad Gita, some Bhagavad Gita had distributed somewhere remaining, and he saw a group of rioters running around, and they saw him in Saffron, they started charging towards him. So he just dropped the books and ran. And he ran, and somehow he survived. And then afterwards, he talked with our spiritual master. He said that, Maharaj, there I had gone and given a class. He said, we are not the body or the soul. But then when there was a danger to my body, I ran away. So did I do the right thing? Was I not living the philosophy? What should I have done in such a situation? So the spiritual master said, it depends on your consciousness. If you accept that what is happening is Krishna's will, then you just accept it. If that is your consciousness, you can accept. But if you think that there's a lot of service I want to do to my for my spiritual master, for Prabhupada, for Krishna, and for that purpose, my body is my tool, and I want to protect this body so that I can serve Krishna better, then that is not living the philosophy, that is not cowardice, it is understanding what is the reason behind the action. Just because I am not the body doesn't mean I just let my body be destroyed. So surrender can be, somebody can have a lot of faith and just stay there only. In one sense, if you see Prahlad, whatever was happening to him, Hiranyakashipu was doing, Prahlad accepted that. But if we consider when Arjuna was being attacked, Arjuna fought back in the Kurukshetra war, or before that also many places. So surrender can take many different forms. So sometimes, generally speaking, how do we know which way to surrender? Broadly speaking, in our life, there are two kinds of things. There are things in our control, and there are things beyond our control. So, for the things in our control, we need to accept the responsibility. And for things beyond our control, we need to accept the situation. So, when I had started giving classes about 30 years ago, one senior devotee had given me a list of 10 guidelines about how to speak for Krishna. But the last point was, depend on Krishna. But there's a long dash, depend on Krishna, but only after you have prepared your class. Isn't it? So hey, if I say I depend on Krishna, I don't prepare at all, then that will simply be irresponsible, isn't it? So, if I come for a class, then what is in my control is how well organized my thoughts are, how my thoughts are flowing. That is what I can control. So I try to control that. But then after a class there are question answers, and in between the class there are question answers. I can't control that. So I need to be able to accept that, okay, these kind of questions may come on. Sometimes I may be able to answer well, sometimes I may not be able to answer well. So the idea is that surrender is in different forms in different situations. In the Bhagavad Gita, the surrender that Krishna asks for Arjuna is that you rise up and fight, you take the responsibility. In the Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj has already accepted that I have been cursed and I accept the curse and I am going to die in 7 days. Then it is more of accepting, this is the Lord's will and how can I accept it gracefully. So surrender can have many different forms. And it may also be that how much is in our control, that can change with time. Say, if we want to keep things clean, if we are in a particular place, in a particular temple, a particular area, then we can keep our room clean, but if we tell others, others will not listen to us. But if we keep doing our services right now, maybe as we move forward, we become senior, we get more responsibilities, and then maybe we become cleanliness in charge. Then we can ensure that the broader environment is also clean. So like our kshetra, that is what is in our control, that area can increase with time. But we need to see what is in my control right now and what is not in my control. And Krishna's will can be manifested in both. Okay, in this situation, Krishna, this is what I will do. This is the amount of control Krishna has given me, and this is what I can do in this situation. So we act accordingly. And the last part is, so I'll talk about three things. That Krishna's will is more like a direction, which is the direction which my life and my consciousness are going. Second is that there are two ways. I can accept the situation, I can accept the responsibility to change the situation. And then lastly, what is our destination? So basically, this is based on the section 1846 to 48 in the Gita. That first let me make a simple diagram, then I'll make a bigger, more complicated diagram. So we all have certain gifts. So what we have, that is Krishna's gift to us. And what we do with what we have, that is our gift to Krishna. What we do with what we have is our gift to Krishna. And this is how this vision of bhakti becomes a very life-affirming vision of bhakti. That means Krishna doesn't just want us to, okay, this material world is a dukkha, just leave this world and come to me. There is some truth to that. But while we are in this world, we need to function. And we have to function in a way that we can have the maximum impact. Yatha nadinam bahavam vega samudram eva vimukha pravanti tatha tavami naraloka vira vishanti bhaktrani abhivijwalanti. 11:28-29, Krishna describes two modes of death, or the Vishwarup is described. In the Vishwarup described, Darshan Arjuna is describing that. So one metaphor is of how moths rush into fire. They rush in and they are burned. The other metaphor is of how rivers move toward the ocean. So Vedanta Deshika is a prominent commentator in the Sri Vaishnava tradition, following Ramacharya in the Bhagavad Gita, and he says that this means, see, when a river goes toward the ocean, like that, the lives of the great souls are like that river, it's flowing toward Krishna. But while the river is going to the ocean, the river does so much good for all the life forms along the way. It provides water, it provides nourishment, it helps in irrigation. So like that, those who are devoted to Krishna, they are going toward Krishna. But while going toward Krishna, they want to do good to everyone. And how do they do good? By using the gifts that Krishna has given them. Somebody may have musical ability, somebody may managerial ability, somebody may have monetary ability, somebody may have relational counseling ability. Whatever abilities we have. Now some abilities we can find them very easy to use in Krishna's service. Some abilities may be more difficult. Somebody will say, I have a lot of interest in physics. Now, if somebody says, I have interest in social media, maybe they can use social media interest to do some social media marketing for devotees. That's straightforward. Somebody may have a lot of interest in physics. We say, how can I use that? Some things we cannot use directly. But suppose somebody has a lot of interest in physics and they become a prominent scientist in future. And then, if they win some big award, and after that, they talk about how my faith, my spirituality gives me inspiration and direction for my life. That can inspire a lot of people. See, even now when ISRO and other organizations, they do this space missions, they go to Tirupati Balaji and take the blessings. Now it may be just a ritual, but they are doing it still. So many of these scientists, they have their influence, and that influence is significant. They are not like superstars, like Bollywood stars or something, but they have a significant influence. So how our gifts may be used in Krishna's service, that we may not know. See, right in the beginning. Now, and Arjuna had the archery ability, he had some talent. Now, is it that he knew right in the beginning that in future there is going to be Dharma Yuddha and there I'll get to fight for Krishna and therefore I should practice my archery? Maybe, maybe not. Most likely not. It was not that Arjuna is omniscient. Krishna is omniscient alone. Others may have some understanding of the future. But Arjuna knew this is what I am inspired to do. This is what I am good at doing. You remember I talked about guna karma yesterday? So he said that this is what I like to do. This is what I am good at doing. So I'll do it. And he was fixed. When we are functioning in the world, if we are taking up a responsibility in the world, we need to take it up diligently. If we are cooking for Krishna, then we can have some kirtans going on, we can have a celebratory mood if we want. But we need to be careful about what we are cooking. Isn't it? Some devotee is doing heart surgery, is a heart surgeon. And that devotee says, okay, I want to remember Krishna while I am doing heart surgery. Yeah, nice if you remember Krishna, but make sure you do the surgery properly. Isn't it? If that is your job, you have to do that properly. You remember that incident when Arjuna says that, actually Drona calls all his students and asks them to shoot a target, a bird, an effigy, an image of a bird, and he wants them to hit the bird's eye. So he doesn't even give anybody else a chance. But he lets Arjuna shoot. What does Arjuna say I am seeing? I see only the eye of the bird. Now, Arjuna is a devotee. A devotee is meant to see Krishna everywhere, isn't it? Why did Arjuna say, I see Krishna everywhere? I see Krishna's eye over there. And are you going to shoot Krishna's eye then? Isn't it? So the point is that when we say Mam Anusmara Yudhyacha, we remember Krishna and we fight, that doesn't mean we split our consciousness into two. One part of one like left brain remember Krishna, right brain do action. It's not like that. It's understand that it's in terms of the purpose. The purpose of what I am doing is ultimately to please Krishna. But when we are doing something, to do it wholeheartedly. I was talking with one devotee who had some severe health problems, and he had some heart problems, and there was a devotee surgeon, heart surgeon. He had a very serious devotee, but he had become a little elderly. He was focused on Krishna. So when he had to do a heart surgery, the devotee had a heart attack. I asked him, with whom are you going to do heart surgery? So he said, Prabhu, if I go to him, he said very politely, he said, Prabhu, this devotee has become a little distracted now because he's so focused on Bhakti. So he said, if I want to go to Krishna, but not right now. So if a devotee heart surgeon is absent-minded, then don't be a heart surgeon, isn't it? It's a serious business. If you're going to take a responsibility, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, Loka Sangraha. Loka Sangraha means what? The world has to be maintained. And every single person who takes a role in the world has to do that role responsibly. I suppose say Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma were a devotee. And suppose India lost in the World Cup. And then after India loses in the World Cup final, and say Rohit Sharma comes to the press conference. And it's actually been lost, it is all temporary, just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Now what will happen? See, the chant Hare Krishna and be happy is the right message. But at that point, it would be like the worst anti-preaching. Isn't it? Now, okay, if you just want to chant and be happy, then don't be the cricket team captain. If you are going to be the cricket team captain, you have to take responsibility. And you have to play well. Yes, and we may explain that, okay, that we tried this and we tried this, but somehow the strategy didn't work. And if when depressed, but I have my devotion, my spiritual side that gives me some strength. That's how I'm staying steady. That makes sense. The spirituality cannot be used as an excuse for irresponsibility. So if we have gifts, we are meant to use our gifts. And thus, Bhakti becomes very life-affirming. And in this way, Krishna says, Yataha pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvadam tatam swakarmanatam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manava. From me, the whole world has come about. By me, the whole world is animated. They therefore worship me through your work. Some people translate it as work as worship. Well, that is not the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita exactly. It is work in a mode of worship. Know that our work is not just to get fame and recognition in the world. It is to also connect with Krishna. So for a devotee, when we do it for Krishna's service, then Krishna will also bless us with enrichment from within our heart. And Krishna may bless us with empowerment so that we may also be able to do wonderful things. But even if the empowerment doesn't happen, not everybody will necessarily be empowered to do spectacular things. Now, spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, Prabhupada has done that. And that's, nobody else can do that, it's already been done. But, so there are two ways Krishna reciprocates. Krishna gives us enrichment from within, and then he gives empowerment by which we can get a lot of success. So even if both don't happen, even if one happens, that's good enough. What happens is, for many people, their view is very limited. They only see this much. That means they say, I am working so hard, and then why is the world not recognizing me? And they feel very dissatisfied and frustrated by that. But if we understand that, no, I'm not just doing this for the world to recognize me. I want to benefit the world, but I also want to reach Krishna. And I'm doing this for Krishna's pleasure. That's why even if the world does not recognize, still the devotee is enriched from within. So in this way, Bhakti is actually very dynamic and life affirming. So for us, how do we make decisions? Today I talked about the last part of that transcendental vision to life and our decision making. First is, that means how do we do God's will in our life? First I discussed 3 Ds. First D was, it's a direction. It's not exactly just a narrow path. That you have to do this, you're doing God's will. If you're not doing this, you are lost. It's not that simple. So, Krishna doesn't want to microcontrol us. It is not that Krishna wants robots. No parents want a robot instead of their child. So, we discuss how the Pandavas are individuals, we discuss how the gopis are cooking for Krishna using their own abilities. Then second, we have to talk about the dual forms of surrender. That there is, sometimes surrender means accepting Krishna's will, and sometimes it means accepting the responsibility to do Krishna's will. That based on what is in our control, we decide, this is what I want to accept, this is what has happened, but this is what I am going to change. So, that's why Bhakti is dynamic. Okay, which time how do I surrender? To use our intelligence, you have to pray and then you make a decision. And the last is destination. For a devotee functions in the world, but a devotee is functioning for Krishna's pleasure in the world. That what we have is Krishna's gift to us, and what we do with what we have is our gift to Krishna. With this vision, we strive to be Krishna conscious, we are enriched by our inner connection with Krishna, but we are not too worried. If the empowerment comes, well and good. If it doesn't come, still that enrichment is what is fulfilling for us. In that way, each one of us can play our part in moving ahead in life. So we discussed how can we live meaningfully. First, the world's nature we understand. Don't make decisions only based on how I can avoid misery. Then look at our individuality to see what are the gifts we have by that self-observation. And even with the gifts that we have, we don't just use those gifts to seek recognition and fame in the world, but we seek to do service to Krishna through these. And when we do these 3 things, we'll find that in every situation in our life, we can find something meaningful to do and move ahead. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So are there any questions about today's class before we take the previous questions? Yeah.
Prabhuji, here this last part which you are mentioning, that how the gifts which we have received, when we use those gifts to serve Krishna, that is our gifts, to Krishna. So Prabhuji, we also hear in our philosophy that we have got human form of life, and the best thing which we can do is those 9 limbs of bhakti. That Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padsevanam. So Prabhuji, now what we are discussing here looks like that now our gifts to Krishna means our inclinations. If we are good at something, we do that. But then at the same time, we hear the philosophy that the best thing we should do is this, that we should simply sit down and hear, or we should simply chant or do that way. So Prabhuji,
I'm not sure those two are contradictory. See, we are trying to develop a relationship with Krishna. And that does involve hearing about him. That does involve remembering him. That's chanting his glories. That's definitely there. But there is Pada Sevanam. The Pada Sevanam or Dasyam, Atma Nivedanam. How can I surrender myself if I don't know what is myself? So, Pada Sevanam, we could say it just means touching the lotus feet and pressing the lotus feet. But that's one example. Is that the only way we can do Pada Sevanam? If you consider Dasyam. Hanuman is an example of Dasyam, but what all does he do in Dasyam? He goes single-handed to Lanka and
uses what
blessings he has been given, what gifts he has, dynamically in Krishna's service. So some of these elements may seem to be very specific, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, but some of them are very broad and expansive. And we can also look at Prabhupada. Now Prabhupada, yes, he focused on hearing and chanting, but Prabhupada also focused on building temples. And for that he was into getting architecture. And Prabhupada, into getting equipment. There's a time when they were not getting cement for building the Vrindavan temple. And finally when they got cement, Prabhupada treated his cement bag as if it was like a jewel bag. Keep it very carefully, Prabhupada said. He said, count each cement bag. The way carefully you would chant Hare Krishna mantra. And count it. So Bhakti is inclusive. Sometimes, some ways she is presented, it may seem that it's a little narrow emphasis, but it is not. See, okay, go ahead.
Guruji, one question to this only. We hear that we have to enter pure devotional service. So, and in that we hear that if somebody is working in an office, let's say, then how he can render pure devotional service. So that is my question, that how, is it right or wrong, my understanding, that's what I want to check. That there are some certain limbs of bhakti, if we do that, like I heard this earlier, that how Jiva Goswami writes in Bhakti Sandarbha, that there are something called Sarup Lakshan of bhakti. So now if somebody do that Sarup Lakshan, then only he is doing pure devotion service. Means his consciousness also should be to please Krishna, at the same time that activity also should be of certain category. It cannot be that somebody is studying and then he can do pure devotion service. Or somebody is working in office, he can do pure devotion service.
See, different devotees have different inspirations. And based on that, they will emphasize certain things. So yes, Jiva Goswami does talk about that. But then if you are really going to talk about the Goswamis talk about Ragatmika Bhakti, where they say that we should, even what we are doing is staying as brahmacharis in the temple. We are not doing Ragatmika Bhakti. We should meditate on a particular associate of the Lord. And we should try to imbibe the mood of that associate and how that associate serves. So our Guru will tell us through Siddha Pranali who we are specifically, our Swarupa in the spiritual world. And then they will tell us who we are meant to serve under. And the whole Krishna Smarana Paddhati that is there. That is, that we enter into Vrindavan, Golok Vrindavan, by meditating on the mood of that particular associate under whom we will be serving in the spiritual world. Now, why select one thing and emphasize only one thing from the Acharya's teachings? That is a very important part of it, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur has not emphasized it. Bhaktivinoda Thakur practiced it a little bit, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur didn't emphasize it, because that kind of thing is very easily imitable through Sahajiyaism. So Prabhupada didn't emphasize it. So when we go to the Goswamis, it can be very easy to selectively quote some things and devalue other things. So the important thing is our consciousness needs to be connected with Krishna. Because ultimately, it's not a matter of technicality, it's a matter of a relationship with Krishna. And if a devotee has an earnest desire to serve Krishna, and the devotee is being given a particular gift, and the devotee uses that gift. So, should the devotee not serve Krishna using that gifts? So how much will be the immersion of that devotee? That's definitely open to question. But if somebody does not have the adhikar, the capacity, the purity, just focus on hearing and chanting, then it may end up that person is trying to do more devotional activities, and they end up gossiping, and they end up getting distracted. They end up, there are so many devotees I have seen in places like Mayapur or Vrindavan, where they prematurely retire, go there, and they are living there, but they just, because they don't have any solid service, and then they don't have any tangible response, they don't have the capacity to immerse themselves constantly in Krishna. So then go and they talk about this person like that, oh, I came to know this, I came to know that. Just get lost in gossip. So now, is it pure devotional service? I feel it's an incremental step. And, first there is service, then there is, first we start with service. Then that service becomes devotional service. And then it will be pure devotional service. So just because somebody is put in a devotional environment doesn't necessarily mean their service is going to be devotional service. Somebody may be employees working in a temple. Now, they may be doing seva only, they may be cleaning the temple, assisting the devotees. They are in a devotional environment, but is there if they are doing it for a salary? That's not considered service. Or we consider service, but it's not devotional service. All this is a devotional environment. So, now is salary the only thing? Somebody may not be taking salary, but they are very conscious that I am such a serious devotee, everybody should bow down to me, everybody should respect me. Now, it could be because they want to train others in etiquette. It could also be that it's because of they have that need for prestige. So who knows? So I feel that we should not we should not quote selectively from the Acharya's writings, so that most devotees feel that what they are doing is not bhakti and they start devaluing it. This kind of devaluing is very dangerous. Say, if parents are practicing bhakti and they want the child to become a devotee, and the child doesn't become a devotee, does that mean that say, if the child is not ready to become a devotee, should the parents just abandon the child? That would be horrendous, isn't it? You say, if my child is not becoming a devotee, then this is not bhakti. Well, okay, maybe, but is bhakti a matter of simply like creating a rubber stamp replica of a particular thing? It's a matter of the heart. If Krishna has given us free will, can't the parents give free will and respect the free will of the child? So this narrow definition of devotional service can be very, very damaging. I have met many devotee kids. Our first generation is Prabhupada disciples' children. It's like if Prabhupada had some 6,700 disciples, then probably the Prabhupada disciples' children, probably not more than 15 of those children have become devotees. Or 1,000 or thousands. Now slowly some of them are coming back. But not 15, maybe 15 is very less, but 15 to 20, 30, not much more. And so it was just that they were so neglected. I was talking with one devotee kid, one Prabhupada disciple, very intelligent boy. He said that, I never felt throughout my childhood that my parents loved me as a person. So they treated me only like I was a trophy of their devotion that they could parade in the devotee community. My son is so nice, he comes and sings these verses. Because my son is so nice, so I am such a nice person. So, kids are discerning. So, such a narrow definition of bhakti, it's like I was in America and I met one, it's terrible. One preacher was glorifying one devotee to me. He says, he's such a sincere devotee. His wife was not ready to become a devotee, so he divorced her. Now, is that the sign of sincerity of a devotee? Maybe it is. But is that the model we want to glorify? Now I don't know the background. Maybe the wife was a terrible person and it is good that he was separated. I tried to ask a little bit. But I don't think ever we should publicly glorify that. Isn't it? It's one thing, say parents, some youth become brahmacharis. There also we try to take care of our parents as much as we can within limits. So if our parents are not becoming devotees, and if we take care of our parents. Is that pure devotional service? Doesn't matter. We are living in the world. Krishna knows our heart, and we need to do what it takes to make sure that that Krishna's movement continues functioning. So I think just because pure devotional service itself is a complex concept. So now going back to that example of that is somebody's seriousness and devotion that they just divorce their wife. I don't think that should be the criteria. Or do we want tomorrow a woman, my husband was not serious, so I divorced him. This is the seriousness of my devotion. Do we want wives to do that? And what about the children? So I think it's an incremental process. We encourage people to connect with Krishna. There is 12.8 to 8, 9, 10, 11. Krishna talks about various levels. Krishna says, you observe yourself in me. If not, you can try to remember me. If not, you try to work for me. If not, you try to work for higher cause. And Krishna says, by all these, you will come to me. So, in trying to practice devotional service, or rather, in trying to practice pure devotional service, we all aspire for it. There's no doubt about that we want. But in trying to practice pure devotional service prematurely, we may actually end up doing anti-preaching. And we may end up alienating people. I was giving the example of, say, the cricket player. Actually, something like that actually happened. And George Harrison was probably at that time the most popular musician in the world. Like when NASA discovered a satellite around Jupiter, they named it after George Harrison. So it was so popular at that time, basically. So, but the thing is that he met Prabhupada, and Prabhupada told him, write songs about Krishna. And he started doing that. And his reviews started completely tanking. He was in Madison Square Avenue, which is like the biggest venue for musicians to perform in New York. And he was there, and the thousands of music fans had come, and he told them, chant Hare Krishna. And people started taking beer bottles and throwing on him, and eggs, and tomatoes, and things like that. Because from their perspective, they have come to hear music. They have not come there to hear a religious sermon. If they want to have religious music, they will go to church or they can go to a temple. So then he met Prabhupada and he told Prabhupada, for every one person, I did what you told me to do, but for every one person I am getting to Krishna, I am bringing closer to Krishna, I feel I am 100 people I am driving away from Krishna. So Prabhupada became very grave. And then Prabhupada said, use your intelligence. You balance things out. So then he started making normal songs, and then he started inserting some little bit devotion here and there. So when the normal songs he started singing again, then again he became popular. And then the media started saying, oh, thank God, this George Harrison is a phenomenal musical talent. He has come out of his cult phase. He had got involved in this Hare Krishna cult, but he has come out of it. And then in between, gently he brought in some devotional themes, he brought in some songs. So he would call himself like a plainclothes devotee. He generally didn't explicitly talk about his devotion. And that was a strategy. He was able to reach a larger number of people. So now if somebody is a popular musician, and maybe as his job, he has to produce music which is in the genre that people expect him to, the genre which he earned fame in. And then he can't just give up his job and make devotional music. If he's going to do that, then that's what he has to tell. Now, I have changed, this is the kind of music I want. If you want, you can hear it, otherwise you leave. But if he goes to a forum, say for example, just to take a simple example, say we are teaching Bhagavad Gita Srimad Bhagavatam, and somebody invites us to the college to give a class on value education. And when we go to, they invite us to speak on some value education, and there we give a talk on pure devotional service. Now, what is happening over here, what is wrong over here is, our giving a talk on pure devotional is not wrong. But if they have provided us a forum, and we have accepted their forum, then we have to find out an area of intersection between what their expectation is and what our aspiration is. If it's our forum, we can speak whatever we want. Within limits, but we can speak whatever we want. But in their forum, we have to be careful so that we are not disrupting the expectation that they have. That's why I said, if Arjuna is a warrior, there's no evidence in the Mahabharata that with each arrow that he was shooting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. No, Arjuna was not doing that. He was focused on fighting. War is a serious business with life and death consequences. So I would say that it's an incremental process, and Krishna says, whatever level we are practicing, we will come to him. That's why I think this pure devotional service, worrying too much whether what I am doing is pure devotional service. It's far better to focus on whether am I remembering Krishna and am I trying to serve Krishna. That anusmara yudhyacha.
Okay, just one point if you can clear. Prabhuji, one verse comes in Bhagavatam, Tyaktva Swadharmam Charanam Bhajam Hare. So I heard the explanation that if somebody gives up the duties for transcendence, then it is much better than doing those duties better.
See, the Bhagavatam has a particular focus. Every book has a particular context. Say for example, if we are giving a brahmachari class, we will focus on a particular thing. If we are speaking to grahasthas, we will speak about a particular thing. So now, if somebody has decided to be a brahmachari, then that person is very cautioned about how to limit interaction with women, how to be very careful. But that same principle cannot be applied to a grahastha who has to be with his family. Isn't it? Yes, that does not mean that they want to be unlimited, just it's a life centered on sense gratification. But grahastha, the way they interact with each other, that will be different. So it's not the exact same application. Isn't it? So the idea is the Bhagavatam is spoken in a particular context. That is, the whole direction of the Bhagavatam is largely like world transcending, not world transforming. There are two different aspects, world transcending, world transforming. Bhakti has both these aspects. The Gita's focus is much more on world transforming. Krishna wants Arjuna to fight a war, and Arjuna is fighting to transform the world. Now, Parikshit Maharaj has decided more or less that I am going to accept this curse. Now, Parikshit Maharaj could have said that I am stopping Kali Yuga, that Kali is coming while Kali is infiltrating, and I don't want Kali Yuga to come through. And to fight against it, to prevent Kali Yuga from coming in, I will counter against this curse. And he could try to find some way, maybe Sirius could have helped him do that. But the Lord inspires different people in different ways. And in that particular context, overall Bhagavatam's mood is world transcending. But if you see within the Bhagavatam also, it's not simply like that. When Prithu Maharaj's citizens come to him and say that we are starving because of this famine, he doesn't say, okay, I'll also renounce the world, you also renounce the world, and we'll all go back to Godhead by starving. No, he actually fights. In fact, he's ready to attack Bhumi Devi in the form of a cow. Just think about it, attacking a cow. Kings are meant to protect cows. And he raises his bow against a cow. Because he says, you have to produce food. So he is showing that when he is in a position, he has to take responsibility for that position. So yes, Tyaktva Swadharmam is true. But is that something which everybody is going to do? If somebody wants to do that, that's fine. See, even a temple situation, we say all of us will be brahmacharis, but if we have some practical problem, and we go on temple authority and tell someone, and they say, just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. It's very frustrating, say, we are cooking, and this person is disrupting the whole mood of cooking, this person is doing like this, doing like that. Can this person give you another service? Say, no, you chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Now, even in a temple situation also, it doesn't work if you have a practical problem and you have a philosophical solution. It can work sometimes, but it doesn't work all the time. We all should have a philosophical perspective, generally speaking. But practical problems also need to be practically addressed. Isn't it? See, if there's a water leak and the whole temple hall is being filled with water. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Well, okay, yes, and no. Isn't it? You have to do something practical also, isn't it? So, it's something which we have to consider. Say somebody is doing book distribution. Is that a pure devotional activity? Maybe it is. But it also depends on consciousness. If my reason for doing book distribution is that I want to come number one so that I can show that I am a better devotee than that devotee. Then maybe that's not pure devotion, but it's good, it's some services happening. People are getting a spiritual message. So, should we constantly be introspecting whether we are doing pure devotional service? I feel that we should always stay connected with Krishna, and I don't mind the devil's workshop. So if we can be at the level of pure devotional service, excellent. But if we can't, we shouldn't be guilty, we shouldn't feel guilty, we should not make others feel guilty, and we should not disconnect them from Krishna. Okay, if you can't practice pure devotional service, practice devotional service. If you can't practice devotional service, at least practice some service. So gradually, Krishna says, we will come to a higher level.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
There's a question here. Answer okay, yes, please.
Hare Krishna Guruji, we see in our life that if a child is immature, then the father will not give him the freedom, right? Because he will misutilize it. So now we can see Lord has given us freedom, and we say that because he loves us, he has given us the free will. So now there are two principles. There is a principle that as he loves us, he has given us free will, and there is principle of the the compassion. So if he knows that we are under the grip of the material energy, we will eventually degrade ourselves. So then if he really loves us and there is compassion, then he should restrict the free will so that we can eventually not degrade ourselves. So now among these two, which principle is the superior one, and then why in such condition God is giving us the free will? He knows that he will definitely misutilize it. So that is the question. Thank you.
I appreciate your confidence in our certainty of misusing our free will. Well, yeah. See, I won't say that I have a complete answer to this question. It's the whole question of free will is a complex question, and when to intervene. Like in Vedanta Sutra, the question comes up that if the Lord is the person who empowers everyone to do everything, ultimately, Duryodhana's ability to fight with the mace also comes from the Lord only. So then, if the jiva misuses the ability that God has given him, is the jiva responsible or is God responsible? Now, we may say the jiva is responsible. Well, that's true at one level. But again, going back to the example, say if in law, if a 25-year-old man shoots or misuses a gun, that person will be held responsible. But if a 15-year-old kid misuses the gun, then they'll say, who had the gun? How did the kid get the gun? If the parents had the gun, then why did the parents not keep it under lock and key? And why did they let the child have the access? So generally, minors are not persecuted so severely, but that does not mean nobody is responsible. Then the adult becomes responsible. Adult is supposed to supervise the minor. So in general, when we talk about, I think I mentioned this love, there are love that guides and the love that guards. There are these two kinds of love. So guides means, okay, it's your life, it's your choice, but this will lead to this, now you decide. And the love that guards, that is, you cannot do this, you cannot let this influence come upon you. So generally speaking, the way material nature works, or way Krishna works, is that we are living beings with free will, and Krishna's primary role is to guide us. That is his primary role. At the same time, there are limits. In 9.6, Yatha akasito nityam vayu sarvatra vo mahan tatha sarvani bhutani matsthani tyopudharaya. So if you consider the sky to be like an upside down bowl, then the example is given that the wind, the gust of wind, the wind can move left, the wind can move right, the wind can move on top, the wind can move downwards. But the wind will be within the parameter of the sky. It cannot go beyond that. Perimeter of the sky, not parameter, okay. So, similarly for us, that whatever we do is within the ambit of Krishna's will. Now, Upadrashta Anumantacha. So, we all get a particular amount of kshetra, but that kshetra depends on what we have done and what we have earned through what we have done. In terms of, I discussed like past karma and present karma and all that. So if somebody has, so Duryodhan had done some karma in the past, because of which he was born in a royal family, because of which he had the ability to fight well with mace. But then he misused that ability. So does Krishna control? Well, through the law of karma, he does give consequences. Like say somebody abuses the human form of life. Then during that human form of life, they may be able to do a particular thing for a particular amount of time. But after that, they go down to a lower form of life. So in that sense, the whole system of karma is a mechanism by which people's actions are regulated. That they get the consequences for their actions. So there is a law that guides, that is there. It's not rape because I didn't force myself. But then you actually gave no choice to that woman, isn't it? So life is complicated. But in general, my understanding is Krishna has provided such a system by which he has given us free will, and he has given us facility to use the free will the way we want it, for good as well as for bad. And he has created a system by which we'll gradually learn to use the free will properly.
In addition to this, again, the question comes to this end, that why this bad desire comes again, that same thing you mentioned.
I don't know whether we can literally use the word bad desire, because see, free will is there and there are desires. So it's like, for a person, what is the range of desire that comes? That depends on the choices that are made. It's like, say, if you are giving some competitive exam and there's some responsive tests. That means if you give a right answer, then you get a tougher question. If you get a wrong answer, you get a slightly easier question. So basically the idea is they try to assess what is your level. So is it that somebody being given an easier question, somebody giving you a tougher question, is that unfair? No, it's dependent. We are trying to find out what your level is, what a particular person's level is. So like that, if a person makes a sattvic choice, the future choices are more sattvic. A person makes a rajasic choice, future choices are more rajasic. A person makes tamasic choices, the future choices become more tamasic. So like somebody who has never, say, taken alcohol, they have always made sattvic choices. Even if you provide them a tamasic choice, it will not interest them. So it is maybe some sattvic drink is there with some alcohol in it. Maybe they might consider that, but straight alcohol, they will not even consider it. So it's not that bad desires come from somewhere. It's more like Krishna says, what is the verse? 4:13-14. Chatur varanyam maya srishtam guna karma vighasha tasya kartaram apimam vidya akartaram avyam. So in the same verse, Krishna is saying kartaram and akartaram. I am the doer and yet I am the non-doer. What it means is, Krishna is the doer in the sense that Krishna has created these 4 varanas. But I am the non-doer in the sense that Krishna is not putting a one person in this. I am not making you a Shudra and I am making you a Brahmana. It is by your own karma, you have a particular kind of disposition by which you fit in that here as a Brahmana, you fit here as a Shudra. So Krishna has created the range of choices. But where we fit in those range of choices, that's up to us. So you could say that the bad desires also come from Krishna. Not really. It is more like the set of options are given by Krishna. Like say a teacher sets a multiple choice exam. In that 5 options are there. 1 is right, 4 are wrong. Where did the wrong options come from? The wrong options came from the teacher only. But that does not mean the teacher makes the person take the wrong choice, isn't it? So, tasya kartaram apimam.
The teacher is the karta of the various options. But when a student chooses the wrong option, vidya akartaram, I am not the doer. So it's like that. So the choices ultimately come from Krishna. Sorry, not choices. You could use the word. The options come from Krishna, but the choices we make. Okay. Let's go. So in Sanatan Dharma, it is said that we come from Manu, but in other religions, it is said that there's Adam and Eve. Well, every tradition, when it comes to their version of history, there will always be differences. Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about how Chaitanya Shikshamrit, that the same one God gives revelations according to culture, according to time, according to circumstances, according to people's mindsets. So I think once we go into specifics, there will be differences. Now, are the differences reconcilable? Well, it will require some research. Maybe they are not. That some devotees have done some research about how one particular Manu's description is very similar to Adam and Eve, is Havyavati and Adam, something like that. In one of the Manu Samhita, in one of the Vedic scriptures is mentioned. But I wouldn't put too much stock on that. My point is that within the Christians have a bigger problem than we have for this. Why? Because their tradition has a very singular history-centered vision of history. In our tradition, there are many yugas, there are many manvantaras, and in one particular phase in the cosmic cycle, it could be that Adam and Eve were the sources. So it's not impossible within our tradition. But from their tradition, because they have such a history-centered view, so it becomes much more difficult. But in general, once you go into specifics, it will be very, very difficult to reconcile. Why? Because each tradition appears at a particular place and teachings are given according to what is intelligible for people at that place. So the stories will be told in a particular way. So in our tradition, there's not much mention of say angels. Now we can say Devatas are angels, but angels are slightly different. Devatas are more like administrative beings who are worshipped. Angels in the tradition are not those beings who are worshipped. Angels are like, there is no puja of the angels. Other angels are beings who guide people, who come to their rescue, who help them. So it's very different. Now in our tradition, there is no description of angels. So are there angels? Well, we don't say that. We know every single being that exists in every 14 planet system. So at every single level, we know broadly. So it's possible angels are there within our tradition also, but they are not mentioned over here. So in general, if you get into specifics, it will be very difficult to reconcile. So the principle is Krishna has revealed according to different time, place, circumstance. So in the English versions of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, whenever female character is mentioned, then there is mention of their beauty in explicit terms. So why is such thing there? It is not usual in the Vedic custom. Well, we shouldn't equate current Indian culture with Vedic custom. So basically, Shringar is considered to be a very important feature in Kavya. Kavya, see for us, Ramayana, Mahabharata, these are sacred books. And they are sacred books, but they are also Kavya, and Kavya has certain rules. Like if you write poetry, you can have poetry which is the last word is rhyming. And you can write a poetry which are every first and third are rhyming, second and fourth are rhyming. There are certain rules for poetry. So Kavya has certain rules, and one of the rules is that Shringar has to be there within it. Shringar means the description of beauty, and beauty includes female beauty. So that is a rule and that is followed by the others. Now we may say it doesn't, it agitates us. Yeah, that is true. So we can avoid reading it. But within the narration, it is not just random. It is, wherever it is given, it serves a purpose. So for example, when Hanuman is in Lanka, and that time he sees Ravan enjoying, or he sees Ravan's assistants in various states of, the maids in various states of undress. Or when Ravan comes and sees Sita, and he describes Sita's beauty. Or there are other places, or in the Bhagavatam, for example, when Mohini Murti comes. Her description is given. So each of these places, there is a dramatic or narrative purpose served by it. That why would when Ravan knew that I don't have protection against Manavas, when he had been mourned by Marichi, but still, why would he get so infatuated? Because Sita was so beautiful. Now, why was he specifically describing her beauty? Because his hope was that by describing her beauty, she would become pleased and she will come voluntarily with him. He initially didn't know, he wanted her, but he thought if she just gets to know me how powerful I am, I can seduce her, I can get her with me. Now, the Asuras, for example, they have fought and they have struggled and worked to get the pot of nectar. Why would they give it up just like that? It's only because she's so stunningly beautiful that they just lost their intelligence. So within the narrative for Hanuman, when he goes to Lanka, he says, there was so much temptation there, but he did not get distracted. So each of these places, there is a narrative purpose being served. So basically, within literature itself, there are three kinds where female beauty is described. There is romantic, there is erotic, and there is pornographic. All three are not the same. So generally in romantic, the explicit description is the least. Where the male and the female are attracted to each other. That's the basic principle of human existence. When they're attracted to each other, then the beauty of each of them is described. So that is romantic, where it is very light description, but it is there. In erotic, the explicit becomes a bit more, where the idea is within the story, the interaction between both of them, between the characters, that is described a bit more in explicit terms. But still, even in erotic, it is within the story, it serves a particular purpose. But often in pornographic, there is no story. The story is not important at all. It's not about any relationship. It's just about the physical indulgence. So, how the two of them met. Do they have a relationship? No, it's just that this person, that person, they are just indulging. So this is, even from a literature perspective, pornographic is considered a very cheap and degraded. But sometimes we have like a Mayavadi vision. Anywhere female beauty is described, we start thinking, oh, this is obscene or something like that. No. There's literature. Literature has its own way of writing. So my understanding is that most of the descriptions in the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, they are romantic. Maybe a little bit erotic at a few places, but none of that can be technically considered to be obscene. Once we start going in that direction, where will we stop then? That it's like in Bharatanatyam, all kinds of traditional dances, they are mostly done by women. So are we going to say that women should not dance at all because it's female body? And then if they should not dance at all, then who is going to preserve these dance forms? Or only low class women should do that. Okay, how are you defining low class then? So we should not have a very puritanical attitude. What Prabhupada has given us is not Vedic culture. He has given us the best of Vedic culture. He has given us the highest within Vedic culture. But in Vedic culture, there are other things. For example, we follow no meat eating. But is meat eating a part of Vedic culture? Yes, of course it is. It may not be the best part. We all know that it's like a concession which is there. The Durga Puja is there. There are especially Kali worship is there. Which meat eating is common at that time. So we are a part of a very broad tradition. Within that, we are focusing on its highest aspect. But that doesn't mean we have to outlaw all other aspects of the tradition. We understand they have a particular place. And yes, in our situation today, we won't be focusing on those kind of things. But that doesn't mean that they are bad or they should be rejected. And so it's not in the English versions. It is there in the original Sanskrit itself. And that's why it is, in the translations also it is there. So, I don't know how much time do we have. You had something at 12:45, I think. Prabhu, at 12:45 or 1, what time should we stop? Okay. So, if we have fear for services according to our swabhava, because we have some conditionings from the past, well, there is fear everywhere. And the one challenge when doing service according to our nature is that it's very easy to feel that we are the karta. It's very easy to become proud because we are good at that. And we start thinking that, I am so good at this. So that's why we need association of devotees who will, especially devotees who will keep us grounded. Sometimes very helpful to also meet devotees or interact with devotees who have talents that we don't have. Because when I have a particular talent and then I surround myself with people who admire that talent, then what happens is I start thinking I'm a great person. But then if I meet with devotees who don't have that talent or who have a different talent which I don't have, then we keep grounded, we keep ourselves grounded. That we start understanding that actually I'm a part of something far bigger. It's a team, and I have been given a particular role. Like say somebody in a cricket match, cricket team, somebody might be a brilliant spin bowler, and they should be the best spin bowler they can be. But they know that one spin bowler does not make the whole team. Somebody else is a brilliant wicket keeper. Somebody is a very brilliant attacking batsman. So like that, we are a part of a team. And we want to play our part well, but we also understand that there are many parts we can't play. And the parts we can play, that also, it is by Krishna's mercy. Sometimes we may have some ability, but like even in sports, sometimes it happens that a top batsman is there, but the batsman goes out of form. He's just not able to play even routine shots. Like that, we'll also see sometimes, even in the fields that we are good, sometimes we are spectacular, and sometimes we are mediocre. And we can't really figure out. Like we may be a very good speaker, but someday we give a great class, someday it's like, it's great when the class ends. Isn't it? So these things happen, and that can keep us grounded and humble that way. Okay. How does the nature work in choosing our sabha? Well, I don't think that the varna and ashram necessarily are related in particular ways. If somebody is fortunate enough or unfortunate enough, whichever you want to look at it, somebody is very clear about knowing what their varna is. Like some devotees are very good at painting. Some devotees are, say, very good at music. Not just good, I'm saying very good, like phenomenally good. So then it's clear that that's what they love, that's what they want to do. Then they have to see, if they want to become a brahmachari, they have to check whether, if that is the service they want to do, whether in the ashram, if not immediately, initially first few years, we'll all have to learn humility and service attitude and discipline, but whether we will get that space or not. Otherwise, what may happen is that that person may feel very suffocated. And that person may feel that, oh, their dissatisfaction may be material in the sense that they're not able to act according to their swabhava, but they may think it's spiritual dissatisfaction. And they may go away from bhakti only. So generally speaking, our movement is becoming very broad now. And we're recognizing that different devotees have different talents. Generally, when a project is beginning, the early stages, that time whatever service is required, we do that. It's like in a country doesn't, if a army unit has gone to a place where a small number of soldiers are there and the enemy is attacking over there, whatever way you can fight, you fight. But then as the country becomes well formed, it has it has a proper constructed army, then somebody goes into, say, somebody goes into raw, somebody goes into this, somebody goes into that. They become specialized and they have the specialized services. So that can also happen. So is it that certain varanas are easier to practice in particular ashram? I'm not sure. Generally speaking, if you look at devotees teaching, brahmachari life is largely for teaching and preaching. So if you like to teach and study, then that is possible in the brahmachari ashram. I'll have to think about this actually, whether the varna and the ashram are particular varanas related with particular, is particular ashram suited for particular varanas? It's not such an easy thing to answer because is the ashram itself is not standard everywhere. Yes, there are certain standard things, but our different ashrams have different moods. I think rather than worrying too much about which ashram to choose based on varna, we focus more on the principle of connecting with Krishna, and let's try to dedicate ourselves to our connection with Krishna more and more. And Krishna will reveal the varna to us also. Krishna will reveal the ashram also to us in due course. Tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. If you have emotional needs, you should not come to the brahmacharya ashram. I don't know whether that is related with varna. Okay. So, yeah. Somehow I feel that it's difficult to give general principles. Brahmachari life is, you have to be emotionally tough for it. That is there because in one sense, while there are devotees who we can develop friendship with devotees, and we can, I have many close friends, but actually I am more of an intellectual. So most of my friends are those who are intellectuals. Whether they are brahmacharis or grahasthas doesn't make any difference to me. So in that sense, but the thing is that I'm not sure how much it is related to the ashram and how much it's related with karma. In the sense that, say, somebody may come to brahmachari life and they may find very good friends. And somebody else may come to brahmachari life and not find any good friends. Now somebody may get married and they may find a very good spouse. And somebody get married, they may not find a very good spouse. So we have certain emotional needs and we would like those emotional needs to be fulfilled. But can you make a linear correlation like that? That, that I have some emotional needs, so I'll go into grahastha ashram. See, whichever ashram we need to go, we have to go with a service attitude. I have some emotional needs, but the other person will also have some emotional needs. Other person will have also maybe financial need, this need, that need. So there's a reciprocation. So two things I would say: don't make this decision hastily. Take some time, observe the ashram, interact with many devotees, and see where we feel comfortable. So we all have an emotional side which cannot be denied. And that's we have a head and a heart. We have an emotional side. But if somebody has a specific need for one person who will be available for me, for my emotional needs to be taken care of, well, that may be difficult. Even if we have a counselor, maybe in future our counselor changes. Maybe the counselor goes to a different project. We go to a different project. So then, can we really shift and find somebody else with whom we can connect? So in that sense, yes, if there is a specific emotional need, then the grahastha ashram might be better. So if we have free will, but Krishna says that if you don't serve me, you suffer in the material world. So is Krishna really giving us free will, or is he giving illusion of free will? Well, it's not that simple. See, you could say at one level the material world is a place of suffering, but it's not equal. Sattva guna, a person suffers much less. In life, there is some suffering is unavoidable. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi. But there is much suffering that is avoidable. So, if somebody lives in Sattva guna, their suffering will be much lesser. Somebody Rajo guna, the suffering will be more. Tamo guna, the suffering will be much, much more. So, it is not that Krishna is sentencing us to suffering just because we don't serve him. No, Krishna has created a place where we can choose to act based on how we can choose to use our free will without necessarily loving him. But within this world, how we act will determine what we get thereafter. It's not that everyone in the material world is constantly suffering or suffering equally. If somebody is suffering more, that's a consequence of their having misused their free will previously. So yes, every action will have consequence. See, having free will means the free will to choose an action. It is not the free will to choose the consequence of the action. Isn't it? That choice nobody has. That would be a completely unreasonable. I have free will. I have free will to jump from this 100-story building. Yeah, you have that free will. But you don't have free will whether gravity will act or not. Isn't it? So, there is, can we really say that free will, it's with respect to choice? Is it consequence of choice? I don't think it's reasonable. Where do we get that free will? Anywhere in the world? We don't have free will of the consequence of the choice. Like if we go above the speed, we'll get a ticket. Now we have the choice to go above the speed limit, but we don't have the choice whether we get the ticket or not. Isn't it? So like that, I think it's unreasonable to say that because we get the consequence of our choices, therefore Krishna has not given us free will. These choices are also a spectrum. These choices can be in sattva, rajas and tamas. So if Krishna had made this world in such a way that if we don't serve him, everybody gets the same kind of suffering, then we could say that that's a problem. That's one of the problems with earlier talked about the Adam Eve Christian narrative. So basically, it does seem to be more of a non-literal or a symbolic narrative than a literal narrative. And I mean, Christian theologians also talk about this, because what happens is in the Christian theology, if you take the literal implication that Adam sinned against God, and that's why we came to this world, and that's why we are suffering. Because in the Christian theology, they don't have the idea of karma as we have it. They have that principle, as you sow, so shall you reap. But it's not exactly karma in the sense that our actions are carried from one life to another life and all that. So then, if we take the whole narrative literally, the implication is that when there is an earthquake where thousands of people die, when there is some pandemic which kills hundreds of people, there's a disease which wipes out maybe half the population. All that is, what is the reason for that? All suffering is because millions of years ago, one person ate an apple. It seems not only ridiculous but outrageous. So now in the Christian theology, the problem comes that if they take that narrative literally, then all suffering is because of that original sin. That's the word they use, the original sin. And because they don't have multiple lifetimes, you have only one life, and you go to God or you go to hell. So all suffering is because of their original sin. Their idea, they say, I didn't sin, Adam sinned. Their idea is that almost like sin is like a genetic defect that is passed down through Adam through all of humanity. And then a big problem comes in Christian theology also is the disparity in suffering. That somebody is born in America lives in a lot of prosperity. Somebody who is, say, born in Somalia struggles for food every day for the rest of their life. So why is this difference is there? Oh, God's will is inconceivable. Well, that's not a very satisfactory answer. So many Christian theologians also consider that to be a symbolic narrative, which represents basically the misuse of free will. And they say 7 days in which God created the world. So 7 days are also like 7 phases of cosmic time, and it's not literally 7 days. So there are literal narratives can be more expressed, more sophisticated ways also. The point is that, why I was telling this is that in the Christian theology there is a problem. The disparity of suffering can't be explained. One sin, everybody is suffering, but in different ways. Why that? It is not that the law of karma is differentiated. When we suffer in the material world, there is a baseline level of suffering because this is a temporary world. But beyond that, whatever suffering comes, that's because of individual actions. Bhutanam yanmitha kali. Bad karma and good karma don't counteract each other. So how do I understand that 90 and minus 90 plus 100 will become 10? Well, the point over there is not that simply I can do one karma which will cancel another karma. It's not that simple. But actually how karma unfolds, that is complicated. We'll see three people may work just as hard. Different people get different results. The three friends are walking along a road and there's a water spilled over there. All three of them slip on the water. The first person, there's a tree nearby, just catch hold of that. And that person just steadies themselves. The second person slips and falls. Nothing is injured except their pride. The third person slips and falls, and just where their head falls, there is an iron bar that has come out of the ground. And they hit the bar, and that person gets brain hemorrhage. That person lives in coma for the rest of 10 years and then they die. So the same actions, widely different results. Why is that? There is surely some past karma playing some role. So when we say that positive karma doesn't cancel negative karma, it means we cannot use karma in a calculative way. But there is a principle of atonement also is there. And even if positive karma can't cancel negative karma, even if karma distribution changes, that can make a difference in a person's life. So when somebody worships the Devata, somebody does some Kalsarpa Puja, somebody worships Krishna, karma can be rearranged. I'll stop with this. That, say, somebody is supposed to get 4 big problems in their lives. Maybe they're going to get a terrible disease. Maybe they're going to lose all their money. Maybe they're going to lose a loved one. Maybe a business partner is going to betray them. All 4 are big problems. But suppose they get these 4 problems in 10 years. One problem at the age of 20, another age of 30, another age of 40, another age of 50. They can deal with it. But imagine all 4 problems come at the same time. Then it will be unbearable, isn't it? So now suppose somebody has lived in a very healthy way in this life. Then maybe they want to get a disease, but they don't get the disease at the same time when their loved one passes away. The disease will still come, but it may come later because they have lived a healthy lifestyle. Now, suppose somebody is going to be betrayed. But in this life, they have always been very polite and helpful and service-minded. Still, this person may betray them. But at that time, because they have been very friendly and kind and helpful, others will come and help them. So, on the other hand, if in this life also they will be judgmental and argumentative and exploitative, now this person betrays them and nobody else comes to help them at that time. So, we can't just say it's only past karma acting. The past karma is like a stockpile which is going to unfold. But how exactly it will unfold can vary. And how we have lived in this life also may determine how we can deal with it when it unfolds. So, in that sense, gahana karmano gatihi. So, that's the point. The point of all this analysis is that our actions matter. That what we are doing right now matters. If we are doing bad things, don't think that we'll get away with it. And if we are doing good things and we're not getting good results, don't become hopeless thinking that, destiny is against us and nothing that we do matters. No. If we are doing good, we will get results. But we may be going through a bad phase right now because of which the results may not be manifesting. Okay. There are a few other questions, but I don't think I can take them now. If any of you are there for the evening class, we can talk at that time. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Itai Gaur Premanande.